Hello and welcome to another video on the AccuFab-L4K by Shining3D. Today, as you can see, everything is about the menu itself. So let's start with what we can see. Right here, we have a diagram of the printer itself, along with the current cabin temperature and the humidity inside. There is a heating system, especially for during the print, where the printer can monitor and adjust the internal temperature. Also right now, as you can see, cabin temperature is too low. That's why the number is displayed in red. I think that makes sense. For the resin, you want it to be anywhere between 20 and 30 degrees on the inside of the machine. Then down here, we have the current set material and how many layers we have already printed. Then at the top, we have two little logos, one that it's connected to Wi-Fi, one telling us that a USB stick is currently plugged in. In addition, we have three buttons on the left-hand side, and we are currently in the home menu, denoted by that little house. Right, so what happens if I tap something? Well, if I tap the material, I can change the material that I say the printer currently has loaded. Well, right now it is the DM12, that's the yellow resin we've been printing with. I can also tell it to cure resin, where it will briefly turn on the entire screen in order to cure a solid layer at the bottom, allowing you to more or less clean the bottom of the tank. And I have a counter for the layers that have already been printed with the current resin tank. I can reset those layers if I want to. So that's the information I get there. The same thing if I tap on the resin tank information, it tells me what material is loaded, and of course whether or not to reset. If I press on idle, it automatically brings me to my printing files. That's this symbol right here with the three dots and the three lines next to it. I have a history of printed parts that I could select and print again if I want to. I also would have a list of currently uploaded parts that are have been uploaded from the software to the printer. And I have a little symbol to access any files that are on the USB stick. So if I press that, it will let me select a file on the USB stick. The current one doesn't actually have any. It's only got the firmware and software on it, but no files. Those would appear there, then I could also print those. Say I want to start printing this, I would have to click it and then press on print, and the print would start. I can also get some additional information right here. I could change the material using this little arrow right there if the material is different after all. I also have this nice little preview image. That's the big sample file that we printed in one of the other videos. So let's go back out of this. That's basically the print menu where I decide what I want to print. Last, but certainly not least, we have the settings menu. And that's where we get to access a lot of the things about this machine. First and foremost, there's the network settings, which allow you to connect to either a wireless network, which we have in our case, but of course the machine also has an Ethernet plug for a LAN network connection, so you can set that up as well. Then, as long as you are in the same network as your printer, you can directly upload sliced files from the software to the printer. Next up are the hardware settings. There's two of these. There's either the motor settings, which allow for movement of the build plate, or the optic settings, which allow you to manually operate the screen that is inside, which cures the resin. So let's check out the motor first. First, we get a warning that we need to make sure that there's nothing left inside the printer and on the build plate, and that we don't damage anything. And then I can adjust the platform up and down with different distance steps. I can move down a bit, I can move up, I can move all the way to the top, I can move all the way to the bottom, I can move to the 0 position, which is where it would start printing, or the 0 position. This right here is basically what we use for the calibration, the set 0 position. That's when you remove the resin tank, put in a sheet of paper, and recalibrate the Z-axis. So that's what we've got for the motor settings. Let's have a look at the optic settings. Once again, we get a little warning that we have to accept. Of course, if we mess this up, we might cure some of the resin that is currently in the tank. And because of that, I am now going to remove the tank from the printer so I don't do just that. All right, so I removed the resin tank and the build plate in order to make sure that I don't accidentally cure any of the resin on top. Now, to clean residue, I can click Cure Resin. That's the same option I had earlier when looking at the resin tank status itself. It'll basically project a solid image for a number of seconds, allowing me to essentially clean the bottom of my resin tank. But I can also enable the projector status. And now I can let it project at a certain power, it's basically the percentage, and a number of different patterns. I can either have it project a black image, which is basically nothing. I can have it project a white image or a grid pattern. There's either a grid 1 or a grid 2, which is a pattern that the projector will, project on the screen in order to cure resin and certain patterns. This in turn lets you calibrate the printer in more detail, and I can correct and calibrate the light intensity. I'm not gonna do that right now, but these are all the options that you have in the optic settings. And it basically allows you to fine-tune your projector settings for optimal print results. Let's go back out of the optic settings because, well, we've looked at both of those. Time to look at the rest. Also, you can notice right now there's a little door symbol that appeared earlier. That's because I opened up the hood on the printer. That's the door sensor. So if I close the door right now, the symbol will go away. If I open the door, the symbol will reappear. Then there are software settings that we haven't looked at. So I can set a printer nickname if I don't like the serial number of the printer. I can change the language from English to German or Chinese, and apparently it even lets you import a language at a later time. Down below, you can activate the cover sensor when printing. That's what I just talked about. When lifting up the lid, I assume it will pause the print as soon as the lid is opened. Sometimes important for DIN certified companies. There's also push update, which I assume just, updates the printer whenever there's an update available. And the skip print wizard. That's essentially a number of questions that will appear before actually starting a print that you need to answer. We can have a look at that one and what that is in just a second as well. Last but not least, we have the About menu, which lets you see a number of information, number of infos about the printer itself, such as its serial number, the software version, firmware version, how many times you've printed, what you have printed, and you can see here, so for us, our resin tank says that right now we've got 7,440 layers printed, but the total is 24,000. So I automatically know from this that at the factory, they printed approximately 17,000 layers. We've also not had any failed prints. So that's something that came from the factory. And it's not from us. You can export the logs for troubleshooting. You can update the software, either via network update or from a flash drive that you've plugged into the side of the printer. So both of those work. You can activate a license using either a flash drive or by inputting a code. And for operation, it lets you do a recovery, a clear local files, or a restore default if you want to reset the whole printer. So that's all the menu options. Now something that I mentioned earlier with that print wizard, and because we haven't seen what happens when we actually start a print. I'm going to click this file that we've printed previously. Now I have the option to either delete it or print it, but I want to see what happens when we actually want to start printing. And here we now see that the cabin temperature is too low. So that may lead to print failure. Right now, I don't actually, I won't allow the printer to do the whole print anyway, so I don't care. Normally, I would want it to heat up a little in order to make sure that the print temperature is correct. This right here is the printing wizard that I just mentioned. It's making sure that the material is well stirred. And if any of these are unchecked, you cannot click next. So you want each one of these little check marks to be green. You want to make sure that the resin tank is clean. That lets you redo the curing of the residue as well. And of course, that the optical path is clean, meaning that the screen is actually cleaned up. Sometimes you may need to use your microfiber cloth in order to get rid of dust. Then you click Next, and it'll start parsing the file, where it basically checks what information is actually contained in the file that you are printing. And then after that is done, it will begin the print, because, well, then it knows what it's supposed to do. So we'll just give it a couple seconds until the parsing is done, and then see what it actually does. All right, we can see that now not only do we have a time estimate of how much time has elapsed and how much is still to go, we also have the number of layers that it's printing. The blue LED ring now has a breathing light pattern, and if I slide it to the right, we can see the current image that is being printed along with the layer height and, of course, once again, our serial number. So those are the things that you can see while printing. You could pause the print, you can cancel the print, which is what I'm going to do right now because I don't actually want it to print this whole part. And yeah, that's all I have for the screen. So thank you very much for watching. This has been everything about the menu and the options that we can find inside. And we will have more videos about this printer in the future. And I hope you'll come by and watch then. So real quick, just the green light is that the print is done. And because I just canceled the print, it shows the screen now. So, you know, print canceled. You can hear the loud beeps to tell us that it's done, or rather that I canceled it, and then I can just click OK. Otherwise, there's a print failed button, and that will lead us into a little help menu. And that is just for feedback, so Shining know what happened, why you canceled the print. Anyway, as I said, that's all I have for today. Stay tuned for more videos. I hope you liked it. Leave us a comment and subscribe if you want to in order to get notified whenever the next video comes out. Thanks a lot, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye-bye.